Welcome to the Highline Herd podcast, where we dive deep into the world of horses and the people who love them. Join us for new episodes every Sunday as we explore everything from horse care, riding tips, and anything else equestrian related. To keep up with the herd, be sure to follow us on Instagram at the Highline Herd and visit our website at thehighlineherd.com. Hello! Welcome to today's episode of The Highline Herd, where we're going to be talking about sacrifice lots. I'm Skylar.
I'm Shelby.
Let's get started.
Yeah, so sacrifice lots, I definitely think they are a key, crucial consideration when you are planning a property. Whether you are getting a brand new property where you get to lay everything out how you want, or if you have an existing property, sacrifice lots are a must because they serve many, many purposes.
Oh, yeah.
You can let your fields rest. It allows for easier pasture rotation because you could take all your pastures on a break if you wanted to. I know I definitely would like to be able to do that this time of year. And it also gives your horses somewhere safe and controlled to get out all their energy. Typically, sacrifice lots are smaller than your main grazing point. So, when you're looking at making a sacrifice lot, remember, you don't want them to have a ton of space. It's a small space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The larger the space, too, the more maintenance and upkeep that you're going to have to do. Not only depending on the footing that you choose for the lot, but also because over time, anywhere, grass will grow through, whatever you put down, things will get muddy, or maybe they'll get divots from where the horses travel on it. If you run machines through it, that can also impact if there's going to be tread marks or how compact certain areas are versus others. So it's just all things that you have to kind of take into consideration when either establishing one or redoing one, or even just working with the current lot that you have and how to make sure that it is as efficient as possible.
That's definitely the big thing with horses, especially if you have more than 2 or 3. Efficiency is a big, big thing. So, yeah, when you're making a sacrifice lot, you definitely have to take into consideration the upkeep of it, whether it's upgrading the footing, upgrading the fencing, keeping it clean, getting equipment in and out, getting horses in and out, making sure it can drain. Like, there are so many considerations that go into sacrifice lots. But the important thing to remember is, too, they can be as complex or as simple as you want them to be.
Yeah, you don't have to go super crazy over the top. If you just want to have a fenced-in area, even a mud lot or something like that you're willing to have that area and to quote-unquote sacrifice it in the footing, the ground, just so that your horses have a dedicated space to be turned out if they don't want to go in the pasture or you can't put them in the pasture. It's a very good option to have set up.
And depending on the footing you choose, if you've got, a laminitic horse, a foundering horse, hell, even one that just needs a little bit of, he needs exercise time, but he can't go out in the big field because, his shoes won't allow it, or he has an injury or whatever, sacrifice lots are great for that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They can, like we mentioned earlier, they protect your fields, but they also give your horses a safe spot to just act like hooligans if that's what they choose to do. I know mine would definitely appreciate something like that right now.
Yeah. Well, and I do have a sacrifice lot, and I enjoy it. Now, currently, I have Sundown, my Mustang, on the sacrifice lot, or in our little gravel lot. And that is kind of his area. But come springtime, I'm going to end up moving him off of that, and he's going to be in the pasture with the other horses. But the way that we have our barn, it is positioned in between 2 of our main pastures. It's positioned right in front of the barn on the outside. And then it has 2 big double doors, sliding doors that access to the barn. And then that is right into the gravel lot. On the other side of the fence is our main pasture, which connects to 2 other pastures. And then on the side of that is our mudlot. And our mudlot's broken up into 2 different pastures as well. But right now, we're using the mud lot as our sacrifice lot just because it is, this weird winter springtime mix, and all that mud is coming back here in Ohio.
Yeah, and again, right, like your mud lots connect you to the barn. That's something you gotta consider when you're making a facility or organizing one. Do you want your horses to have access to the barn like Skylar's do? Or do you prefer walking them in and out? Do you prefer seeing them move? Do you only have enough space that horses can only get 8 hours, 12 hours of turnout? All of that has to come into consideration when you're planning these things. I like Skylar's setup where it's right off the barn, but I don't know that I would want them to have easy in and out access to the barn itself. I think I would rather stall connection than barn connection.
Yeah, that's the one thing. So our barn, it used to be a cattle barn. So it was not set up for horses in any way, shape, or form. The previous owners ended up making it for their one horse. So there's a lot of things that I wish that we could change and do differently, but with the current layout and how much we already have established around it, like the pastures and everything, there's just not too much changing that we can do at the moment. But I will say it is nice having the run-in, especially in Sundown's case, because I am still training him, getting him used to being in a stall, around other horses, in a barn, because he's never had that before. And having that sand lot, or not sand, it's like a pea gravel, having that lot right outside there where I can control, at least it's a controlled environment. The fencing is high. I put his round pen in there as well, to like just protect the fence, and then also not have to worry about the mud or anything forming right there where he's gonna be is just a lifesaver. And I don't know what I would have done without having that.
Oh, for sure. Well, and your circumstance is like a perfect example of making what you have work. I mean, you made, you use a panel to keep your guys contained to their 2 stalls when they wander in and out of the barn. And like you said about Sundown, he's still getting used to being enclosed. So it's nice having the panels and being able to let him have free reign.
Yeah.
And definitely as most of us are, when you get a facility that someone else has had before you, where you don't have a whole lot of say in the layout or the setup of stuff, you definitely do have to take those things into consideration. Like, if you are going to make a sacrifice lot, do you connect it to the barn? Do you make it its separate place? Do you take a corner of your pasture and just sacrifice it? I know for me, I have the property space. If I wanted to create a separate location for my sacrifice lot, I could. Will I? No. That is not what's going to work best for my property, my horses, or my facility. So when everything calms down, because right now humans are at risk of injury just as much as horses in the mud.
Oh, yeah.
I know I'll be taking a whole section of my field and just sacrificing it. Y'all can tear this up as much as you want. Like, just ruin it, but let's keep the rest of the fields nice and lush. But that's, the first thing. You gotta decide when you're looking at sacrifice lots, when you're thinking about having one, you gotta consider, how are you gonna make it work for you? Are you going to do what Skylar does and make it, a part of your barn? Are you gonna make it so they can go in and out as they wish? Or are you going to make it its own section where they have to walk from their stalls over to it, where you have to lead them and take them in and out? And then, that ties us into size. Make sure your openings are big enough you can get horses and equipment in and out. Sacrifice lots, because of their design by nature, need more upkeep and cleaning. But again, it can be as complex or simple as you want.
Yeah. No, and like our sacrifice lot, the way that we have it designed is it's got basically on all 4 sides is a door or a gate of some type. So it has 4 different access points into this square lot. And then it's been drained. It's been like properly installed so that all the water that it does collect will run out and not be just sitting in there in a cesspool.
Yeah, you definitely have to consider, like, because of the nature of a sacrifice lot, you gotta make sure that space is draining. You gotta make sure you're getting the manure out of it. Otherwise, you're honestly kind of defeating the purpose of keeping them out of the wet and mud.
Yeah.
So, that's the first thing. You gotta look at location, and you gotta consider gates. I know so many people do not consider gates on their properties. Even if you can't afford gates immediately, at least set up your spot so you can install them later on.
Yeah. Ugh.
That has been one of the main pieces of advice I've seen from experienced horse people. Plan for gates. Even if you can't afford them right away, having 4 access points is a boon more than anything.
Yes.
You're not going to be spending, trying to do little 3-point turns with your tractor in a small square area. You're not going to be struggling to maneuver a round bale because, if you've got 4 access points, 2 access points, you can go straight in, straight out. I know my one, space that I'm trying to make a sacrifice area, and it's not cooperating with me. I've got 2 gates on it, and that was a requirement because I was like, I'm thinking about equipment. You gotta consider equipment moving. You gotta consider horse moving. If I needed to back a trailer to my lot, I could. If Skylar needed to, she could.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen her dad taking round bales into their sacrifice lot.
That's exactly how I was going to bring it up too. That is how we get our equipment into all of the pastures, is through that little gravel sacrifice pen. Just because it's convenient, it's very easy to get the tractor through the gates because we have the larger gates as well. And you don't have to worry about turning around. You don't have to worry about any of that. It not only saves time when trying to do barn prep or redoing a hay bale, putting it out there for the horses, but just the convenience of everything.
And yeah, speaking of convenience, 8-foot gate minimum. That'll get most of your equipment through. You can take 2 or 3 horses through that opening if you wanted to. Yeah. I'm not a fan of leading multiple horses at once, but I also understand certain circumstances require it.
Yeah.
If there's an emergency, you want to be able to get as many horses out and through as possible with minimal drama. And
or heck, even emergency vehicles too.
Exactly.
Say something did happen, and having that bigger gate gives you that versatility of them being able to access areas.
And having a space that multiple vehicles can get in and maneuver. If you need to get a crane in there, a tractor, let's say your worst case scenario, your tractor gets stuck. Being able to get that out would be nice. So let's talk about size then, because if you're making a sacrifice lot, you need to consider size, not just for your horses, but again, for convenience. Equipment getting in and out, equipment maneuvering around, because it's going to be a lot easier to clean and maintain and fix any divots or anything with equipment than it is by hand.
Yeah. I know, so our sacrifice lot, I believe, is, I don't know if it's 80 by 80 or 60 by 60, but it is a bigger space. It's basically a little bit larger than a 60-foot round pen. So I would assume it's either a 60 or an 80.
Yeah. And, you've got 2 horses. That's more than enough space for those 2. And so when you're considering all of this and you're considering sacrifice lots and you're getting ready to install them, consider the size. Do you only have 2 horses that get along swell? Yeah, 60 by 60, that'll be just fine for them. If you've got 3 or 4 that need to stretch their legs, you might want to go a little bit bigger, closer to an arena size almost.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, but horses getting along, if you're going to put them in that sacrifice area together, you got to make sure your horses get along. Because there's not going to be as much space for them to get away from each other and decompress and have their own little bubble in 60 by 60, 40 by 40. 40 by 40 is for 1 horse. Let me just say. That's your minimum size. That's 40 by 40 is for 1 horse. But still, even if you say have, 70 by 100, that gives them enough space. That gives 4 horses enough space to run around, roll, kick, buck, fart, whatever they want to do. But ultimately, they're not going to be able to get away from each other if something arises.
Yeah, or if a conflict happens. Because let's, talk about horses. they're unpredictable.
They are, and you know what? They can have good days, and then all of a sudden, just decide, I don't like you anymore. You're not my friend.
Yeah. Or, hey, you did something, and I don't like it, and I'm gonna be mad at you.
Yeah, you breathed my air. How dare you?
Yeah.
So, when you're thinking about sacrifice lots and you want to put multiple horses on them, make sure those horses get along. I know my guys will spend the night at Skylar's, but we don't turn our horses out together because my one horse especially, he's more dominant. And on that small 60 by 60 dry mud lot she has, that's just asking for trouble.
Yeah. And again, you don't want to set your horse up for failure. You don't want to set multiple horses up for failure.
Right.
Put them in a situation that or kind of have an idea of how things might play out. It's just better safe than sorry. The one thing I do like, though, is I have that sacrifice lot, that little gravel lot, but I also have the mud lot. Now, we call it a mud lot because during the winter and then early spring it's just soupy, nasty, disgusting mud. But it does harden up when we take the horses off of it, when it's nicer weather, the ground's dry. But we can always put them back on it, if a really bad storm comes along and there's a lot of rain and it's just muddy again. So we have two technically sacrifice lots.
The nice thing too is not nice thing, that's the wrong way to phrase it. I would say the thing about your situation too is you've got two different footing situations to choose from too.
Yes.
If you didn't have Sundown, they could go hang out in the pea gravel lot and you wouldn't have to worry about the mud.
Yep.
As for the mud lot, that's where the different types of footings you can choose come into play.
Yeah.
You can do what Skylar does and just have a basic gravel lot or a mud lot and that be it. Great, that gives your horses somewhere to stretch their legs. If you wanted to make it more complex and spend more money on it, you can start adding in, grades and leveling it, increasing that drain so you can add footing like crushed rock, pea gravel, sand, stone dust. I know a lot of people like stone dust for it a lot, especially around here, because it does drain, it does compact nicely, and it's very minimal. It holds up to Ohio weather pretty well.
Yeah, I worked at a lot of barns who used it for just some little turnout lots, and it did hold up very nicely.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be my first pick, just comfort-wise. All of my guys like to lay down and roll. And I've seen where stone dust for horses that love to lay down and love to roll, I've seen where stone dust can cause abrasive injuries. It can cause, almost like burns and scrapes on them. Just, it is an abrasive surface.
Yeah, rubs the hair off sometimes.
I mean, I've seen it rub skin off. I've known horses who've had to wear boots over their hocks and their knees because they just love to lay down that much, but the footing's not designed for it. So that's another thing to take into consideration, right? What do your horses do better in? I would definitely prefer either bare soil or sand.
Yeah, I think those are my two go-tos as well.
Sand's just not as forgiving in Ohio weather.
Yeah.
It has a tendency to wash away and...
Well, unless you have my arena.
In which we probably wish some of it would wash away a little bit.
So, my arena is very deep. When we put in the arena, we had it done professionally, and he did an amazing job. Trent Porzinski did with Porzinski Excavating, and he leveled it, he put drainage in, and I've never seen that arena get puddles, ever.
No, when it's wet like this, it's great. It's when all of it dries out.
Yeah.
It's never dusty, but it's just too deep when it's dry.
Yeah. And that's something that this year I'm actually going to be working on is I want to build a round pen and take some of that sand out because there's enough sand in there to make a sandy round pen and put it deep too.
I was going to say, you've already pulled some sand from it, so.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's, you have to consider size, footing, do your horses get along, and, location when you're building a sacrifice lot.
Yeah.
It all goes together, it all can make or break what you do. And, you want to be careful how much sand you wind up in, because as nice as Skylar's arena is, If you do go with a sand footing, the thing I don't like about her arena is how deep it is. That can lead to suspensory issues.
It works them very hard. So you have to kind of take that into consideration when, like, working your horses in there, riding them in there. You know, it's a lot more...
Even just letting them run around, though.
Yeah, it's a lot more taxing for them.
It is, and I notice because the footing's so unstable, they have a tendency to not know quite how to place their feet. So there's a lot more tripping and stumbling.
Yeah.
So when you're making a sacrifice lot and you decide, oh, I want to go with sand, well, make sure that sand is going to let them exercise safely. Make sure they can roll and run and buck and fart safely. Because ultimately, that's what a sacrifice lot is supposed to give you. Yes, it'll protect your pastures, but ultimately, it should give your horses somewhere safe to exercise their legs and act a fool.
Yeah. Well, and I would even say, too, like, if you're in, like, that decision state of trying to figure out what you want to do, what purpose is this lot going to serve? What purpose is the sacrifice area going to serve? Is it going to be specifically for one thing, like housing injured horses, or giving them at least a little bit of space outside of a stall to walk around, move around?
Yeah, or will it act like a quarantine area? Because that'll ultimately decide, too.
Yeah.
Do you need to put a shelter in your sacrifice lot? Do you need to budget for something like that?
Yeah.
Do you need to budget to have a hydrant next to it to keep a trough full at all times? If your horses are only in there for 2 hours, you know, while you do stalls or whatever, yeah, you probably don't need to think about hydrants or shelters. But if that's going to be their main area that they get turned out in for like 3 months, if they live out there 24/7, you might want to get yourself a shelter and a trough or install a hydrant.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's all. Sacrifice lots, again, can be as complex or as simple as you want them to be, but you ultimately need to consider their purpose and how long are they going to be in use, how many horses. So all of that needs to be taken into consideration. Like, again, complex or simple, but ultimately everything with horses is planning.
Yeah.
Even the footing, like we just discussed, the mud works. It's not the best for hoof health, but, you know, in a jiffy, it works. The pea gravel's great, but if they were in there long term, would they be able to comfortably lay down and roll? Probably not. The arena, the sand footing's fantastic when it's wet. When it's like saturated, it's great, you know, but when it's dry, it's a lot harder on them.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder for them to move and act a fool. So everything has its benefits, everything has a purpose. What's your purpose for a sacrifice lot?
Yeah.
That'll also determine fencing. I like wood fencing aesthetically, but I also like the physical barrier it gives horses. Majority of horses will not push on a wood fence.
Yep.
But you can also use electric. If, like, I'll be using electric when I eventually section off one of my fields because it's easy to move. It's temporary if I want it to be. It can be permanent if I want it to be. That's what a lot of what you have is.
Yeah, so in our little gravel lot, where Sunny is, I like it because it is the higher wood fences. They're about 5 foot high. And it looks pretty. Like, I like how that looks. But I understand that sometimes it's not in the budget for making wooden fences because they are more expensive and they're harder to, you know, install. But around our mud lot, we have electric just running all the way around. And even on the back side of our main pastures, we have electric. And that is very nice because, again, you can pick it up, you can move it around. It's pretty versatile. And if you have horses that respect that barrier, I think there's even actually one part on our pasture where it is literally just one strand of electric wire.
I think all you have there really to deter them is the smallest wagon possible. Yeah. Like, you've got like one strand at like knee height and a wagon in front of it, and your boys are just fine on that.
Yeah, and as long as you have horses that respect that barrier, then yeah, go for it, use it.
Right, the giant round bale helps.
But... Yes. Yeah, they have access to food, they have access to water, so they don't really want to leave. But yeah.
Yeah, all of that has to be taken into consideration. And the other benefit too that is nice about electric, and I know you've personally experienced this because of your property layout, trees.
Yes.
Electric holds up to having a tree fall on it. It really does. You're at most replacing one strand, if it even breaks. A lot of times it just collapses the fence, you pick it back up, hook it back up, and move on.
I was gonna say, that's exactly what happened and why we're down to like one strand on just one little portion of, yeah.
Yeah, so all of that is stuff you have to take in consideration. Size, footing, use, what's best for your facility, because what works for our guys isn't going to work for everybody.
Mm-mm.
I know that little knee-high strand in the green wagon would just be a joke to one or two of mine. Like, so you gotta figure out what works for your facility. But now that we've touched on all of that, I think Skylar should share her personal experiences with her mudlot, because it wasn't always a mudlot.
No, it wasn't. When we first moved out to our property about 10 years ago, the mudlot was a pasture, and it was actually half wooded too. Since then, a lot of the trees, some of them were walnut, so we had to remove them because we wanted the horses back there. And horses don't go well with walnuts. It's very dangerous for them to accidentally ingest them. So we took them down and cleared a lot of that area. Over time, we determined that we did need a lot that we could sacrifice. Just by experiencing, oh my gosh, we don't have room, or we don't have a spot to put our horses, that we're not going to be worried about them destroying the grass or the pasture or the ground or anything. And that just kind of became the mud lot. So we would just throw them out in there and dedicate that space to being destroyed and being okay with it getting destroyed.
Yeah, but when you were first working on it, didn't you say you had it leveled and stripped and properly done so it wasn't just mud muck?
No, not the mud lot. That was the gravel lot that we had worked on. Yes. So the gravel lot in front of the barn, we had all of the ground taken away, excavated. We had it leveled, we had drainage put in, and then we had multiple different layers of rocks, gravel, and then the fine like pea stone on top.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that definitely requires upkeep, because I think you're definitely coming into the time where you're gonna have to
redo it,
refresh it a little bit.
Yes. So we made the mistake of not keeping up with it because we weren't putting horses on it. We were just leaving them in the mud lot. We wanted them to have more room to roam around, do whatever they wanted during the day. And because of that, neglecting to upkeep with it, a lot of grass grew over and around the edges. There's a lot of grass now everywhere through it that just needs to be removed.
Yeah, upkeep's definitely important with anything you're doing with horses.
Yes.
Maintaining pasture, maintaining arenas, maintaining round pens, maintaining barns. Name one thing we don't have to maintain with horses. Yeah. I think it's easier to just say you gotta maintain everything. And unfortunately, if you want a good sacrifice lot that serves the purpose of protecting your fields and protecting your horses, you're gonna have to upkeep it. And while you can make it as complex or as simple as you'd like, you do have to consider that sometimes simple is not always better.
Yeah, and sometimes going the extra mile when you're putting something in will save you a lot of trouble down the line.
Yeah, because I can imagine, like, now if you wanted to strip and foot your mud lot, it's going to be a lot more work than it would have been in the beginning.
I don't want to think about that.
And I know, because the way the mistakes I've made this year maintaining my pastures, it's going to be a lot more work to level them all back out and get them back to where they were. They were so nice last summer. They were gorgeous, but this has been a hard winter, and it's just been rutted up bad.
Yeah.
So, that's where I wish I had gone the extra mile and before winter hit, made a sacrifice lot. Like, even if it was just a small section of my fields that I just said, yep, tear it up, do what you want. I wish I had done that from the beginning.
Well,
So-
it's something to know going forward. And
It really is. It's one of those lessons that, we learned the hard way, so
Yep.
here we are trying to help you not learn that way.
yeah.
So that's why we say things like prepare for gates. Even if you can't afford them, immediately, at least put the posts in so you can get the gates installed down the line.
Yeah.
Even if you can't afford nice fancy wood fences now, at least install some electric so they can get turned out, so they can stretch their legs.
Yes.
At least give them a space to roll and run and buck and fart. Even if it's, you have 6 horses, it's only big enough for one at a time. Even if you spend 6 hours giving each horse an hour out there, giving them somewhere will help you. And ultimately, you got to do what makes your life easier. So go the extra mile to make your life easier long term.
Yeah.
Good footing, good fencing, good horses. Happy horses.
Happy horses, yeah.
I'm sure mine would love a swamp right now. Like, anything to go out and, actually run. And I can't do it. My fields are a mess. Sacrifice lots are gonna help you. I can't recommend having one enough, especially when you live somewhere like Ohio.
Yeah. Or having multiple.
Yeah, I know bigger facilities. I've been to some bigger facilities where they'll have 4 or 5.
Yes.
So, all of that stuff you need to take into consideration. Size, use, footing, horse amount, horse time on there. All of that stuff you gotta think about. Go the extra mile out the get-go. I know it may seem like a lot, but long term, that extra mile will help.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this week's topic. Join us for new episodes every Sunday. And to keep up with the herd, be sure to follow us on Instagram at The Highline Herd and visit our website at thehighlineherd.com. We hope you enjoy the show. See you next week.